Who knows the answer to this question? You know the answer?
No, I don't, but I feel like there is no answer because no one really knows.
Well, hang on. Hang on. Go ahead. What's your name?
My name's Leah.
Leah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like the answer to this question is that no one really knows, because if you're not really there in the situation, then you can't really know the real story of what happened.
Okay.
You just have he said, she said.
Okay. So, by the way, we're not talking about just women. We're talking about men also.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got you. So you would disagree?
This is actually my pack back thing, what I was going to do. I read a couple articles today that it's close to 2 to 10% of allegations that have been considered false.
Look it up. Before we go any further, just look at see how fast you can come up with the answer on your phones. Because Leah's saying, there's no real answer. It's he said, she said, whatever the case is. So what's the art? So first off, where's the article from? Right, what's your name?
Lucy.
Lucy?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is from BBC News, and it's the same thing. It says that over the past 20 years, only 2 to 10% of rape accusations are proven to be fake.
Okay, so listen. So it's the BBC. It's not like BuzzFeed. The BBC is, I don't care what you want to think about Donald Trump. All news is distorted in some kind of way, right? All news. Even like you all wouldn't agree on the color of my shirt. Some people will call it blue. Some people will call it looks a little more purple to me. Colorblind people might call it orange. I don't know, but you can't. But it's not all fake news. There are people in reputable news organizations that are trying to get it news. So you start with the BBC, 2 to 10%. Okay, how long did that take? How long did that take her to get that? 60 seconds. Dude, people's lives, people go through a lot of turmoil, discomfort, struggle in 1,001 different ways. And all it took was 60 seconds to look it up on your phone. Instead of being, well, we don't know, it's about this, it's about that, it's whatever. Go ahead, bro.
So the data also shows that only 0.06% of the perpetrators are incarcerated.
Are what?
Are incarcerated.
What is it?
0.06% of the perpetrators
Where's
are
that
incarcerated. From the Washington Post.
Okay, Washington Post. So now I hear BBC, I hear Washington Post. I want to know where they got those numbers from. So when I'm looking at stuff from class, I'm starting to look at stuff. And dude, it took you, how long did that take you? It took you
maybe 15 seconds.
15 seconds to get that. Why is it that these things that really matter to us, and then we don't even look them up? It's like, this matters. It's like remember the day when we talked about sexual assault, and the first question that came up when the person was talking was like, well, what about people with false allegations? Like, well, what about false allegations? This 2 to 10%. Perpetrators have less than 1%, far less than 1% chance of ever spending time in jail. So that didn't take very long. That completely changes or structures any serious conversation that we are going to have about truth and about sexual assault and about false allegations. Right there, those two little pieces of information. So here. So now, peer-reviewed study on a college campus. So now I start looking at that number. From that, okay? Peer-reviewed study on a college campus. That's where that came from. I say, oh, okay, hang on. What's the N? Well, it was about a 10-year period. And the N, I think, was the N, meaning the number of cases that they really looked at very carefully. It was about 164. And they came up with this number. Even they came up 2 to 10%. So it's like, okay. But at most, it's 1 out of 10. So the first thing in my mind, if somebody says, man or woman, anything about sexual assault, the first thing in my mind is not going to be, is it false? There's at least a 90, going just by this study, there's at least a 90% chance of it not being false. So I'm probably going to stand over here in the place of, oh, hang on. She or he is probably telling the truth. Probably. Doesn't mean they are. Got it? Doesn't mean, I didn't say they are. But probably is. So now it's going to shape some things in me. The FBI says it's about 8%. But I look at those data and say, all right, where's the FBI getting that? And then I say, well, what about other crimes? What's the FBI say about other crimes? On average, how many crimes are falsely reported in the United States? Because this matters. Do y'all know that? Look that up. This matters. How many lives are radically changed because we're just unwilling to even get on our phones? And yet I'm going to sit home and have an argument about so-and-so's friend or my cousin or this person from school or whatever, someone in my sorority or someone in my fraternity. I'm going to have all sorts of ideas about whether they're guilty or not guilty, whether they're lying or not lying, and I don't even have any idea what some of the statistics are about what was probably going on, even though each case is different. Like, because it goes back to what Leah said. It still is. She said, he said, or he said, or she said, she said. A very large majority of false allegations are teenage girls. Doesn't mean all, but a very large majority are teenage girls who are saying, did something they weren't supposed to do, and then later turn around and say, no. Okay, so then I say, oh, okay. So now what if I have a student who's not a teenager anymore? Or what if I have someone who's my age? What if I have someone in their 20s? What if I have someone who's 10 to 15 years old, 10 to 12, I don't know. It's suddenly, oh, well, those numbers, instead of being 2 to 10, now, instead of being 10, they start dropping down more around 2. You got it? So now I'm going to investigate this, and I have to make some decisions about it, let's say, and instead of thinking a 90% chance, I'm like, you know what, it's probably, on average, it's not saying it's true, because every case is different, but maybe it's more like on average, a 96 or 97% chance that this person's telling the truth. And that's a very different place to be than sitting back as we were last week or a couple weeks ago, just being like, well, what about false allegations? Meaning they're like somehow equitable, like they're the same. He said, she said, sounds like it's equal. And I'm like, actually, when I look at the data, it's like, she said, and he said. You got it? It's like the person making the allegation. You're probably more going to, the data would tell me that I'm probably more going to want to go on that side. Not always, and that's part of what investigation, you want to balance it out.